on these. I love these pay-as-you-wish events. I don't know why I didn't do them earlier. Instead of me, just sitting up here talking like I know everything and putting a big price tag on it, it's just so much, it just feels so much easier and just, it feels like where it's supposed to be, you know? And believe me, if no one paid a thing, I'd still do it. It doesn't matter to me. Isn't that a great place to be? I think it's really a good place to be. I guess that means that I'm going with the flow of the abundance thing, as they say. I ought to, as much as I've tried to practice positive reinforcement on that. I just love seeing all y'all familiar faces and the familiar names and all that good stuff. But before we get started in the lunar nodes, I really want to talk about, kind of want to ground us in on what's going on right now, what we're already feeling. Everybody at least here is. And what is going to be coming up next week, which is really historic. And I know I've been talking about this a lot, but it really deserves being talked about. Okay, so we're moving toward a new moon, which is also a solar eclipse, which, of course, we're gonna notice what happens, but this is going to be closer to the Antarctic, so we're not really going to see it, and it's just a little bit different. We're between that in-between space, so it's not really a reset just yet, but we're coming on to it. We're feeling that pressure to rethink things. And of course, what does Aquarius ask? Aquarius is always asking what needs to be updated, my computer. What systems aren't working anymore, potentially my computer. And where do I need to zoom in and out, and how to react. So Aquarius, remember, is not necessarily sentimental. In fact, it's not at all. It doesn't care what's been going on necessarily in the past. It's about what's going on from this point forward. That's where we are. So in the bigger space, let's go even bigger with it. Neptune has actually moved out of Pisces, and it's now in Aries at the 0 degree. And it was in Pisces for, I think, 14 years. So it really finished its business in that 140 some odd cycle it has. It finished its business at the end of the zodiacal wheel, and now it's starting a new business with Aries at 0 degrees. So I want to be clear, I don't experience this. When Neptune's in Pisces, it's very inspirational and spiritual and everything. And now it's moving into that hard-hitting, fast-moving, fiery sign of Aries. I've heard some people say it's not necessarily an inspirational period. It's more of a get-it-done period. And I just to be clear, I really don't see it that way. I feel it very inspirational. But I'm a fire sign, I'm a Leo, so maybe that's the difference. I'd like to know if y'all could email me or message me or however you want to get in touch with me. Let me know how you're feeling and how you think it might work with your elements. That'd be good for my research. At the same time, I can feel it. To me, it feels more like a spiritual warfare, not just of the world. The world is experiencing it, but if we turn it back internal, like Neptune would have us do, really, it's kind of like, okay, is my spirit worth fighting for? And what is worth fighting for in this, so I can keep my spirit intact? Perhaps that's the way it goes. Aries wants clarity, and it wants direction, and it always wants something to stand for. So that's kind of where I'm coming up with that. And the thing about it is that Neptune dissolves and disperses. and it doesn't have that. It's what was the path. If you can picture a path by a river, and you're going down this path, and then all of a sudden the path just kind of disappears. That's kind of what Neptune does. It just kind of disappears, and you're like, okay, well, did I miss my turn off? Or now am I supposed to forge my own path? So instead of kind of picking a clean battle out there, the battle is going to be turned, the battlefield's inward, I believe. It's more like, okay, who am I now that I've experienced all this? Or that we collectively have experienced all this? Is my identity at odds with your identity? Or with what I thought my identity was? Can we act like we can get along anymore? Can we even act like that after everything that we've experienced? Or do we just cut bait? Is there a different way to approach it? What can I find that is worthy in this? What can I find that's going to keep me on that inspiration path? So it's not really necessarily conviction or projection. It's like I'm standing for something real or something. Am I standing for something real, or am I standing for something imagined? Because everything has just, I cannot tell you how many conspiracy theorists I kind of feel like I have to apologize to now. It's crazy. So what I thought was just correct is proving not to be. All that wild stuff is potentially, it wasn't that wild. Well, it's all wild, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about and why I'm saying that. So Neptune in Aries is going to, kind of pits impulse against intuition, and its ego against the soul, fantasy against courage. What else would it be? It's kind of like even courage against embodied courage, or like fantasy courage and versus embodied courage, if that makes sense. It's exhausting, and it's really confusing to me. I don't know about you, but it is to me. But I still find it kind of motivating in an odd way. Like you're ready to fight for a cause as long as you can actually clear what that cause is. So Aries will say, I'll charge. Neptune asks, do you know why you're charging? Do you know how you're going to charge? Do you know where you're going to lead? Do you know who you're going to lead? And that friction is uncomfortable, but it's also very fertile ground because Saturn is showing up. So on February 20th, and then again, we've talked about this, Saturn and Neptune meet up at 0 Aries, which is the beginning of the zodiacal wheel. So the very beginning of this point is so important. And Saturn is going to feel like mandating everybody, restricting everything, putting it all down, locking it in really hard, and doing something very specific. So I would say above everything, correct your mind, correct your work, correct where you've misstepped or misled in the past. Do it with kindness to yourself, and also correct where you have been misled and where you're having to face that now. Revisit your assumptions, retake tests. So if you failed the test, maybe try to study a little bit, try it again. Edit the stories you've been telling yourself and the stories you've been telling each other. Right? I'm having to do some editing, quite a bit of it. Saturn asks for real responsibility and results for what we've created thus far. So, that's why we have to rethink it. The good and the not so good, really. Not in a shame way, but in a mature way. Okay, not like, oh, I feel so bad because I did this, It's more like just owning it. Owning what you said, owning what you did, owning what you didn't do, owning what you ignored, owning where you could have done more, owning where you did too much, owning what you tore apart when you should have shored it up. And go forward from there. It's about authorship. So, where have I been clear? Where have I been careless? Where have I avoided responsibility by hiding behind belief, identity, or intention even? And that's why this is such an important moment. It's a reckoning for sure. And I know we hear that a lot, but it really is. It may be kind of a reckoning may be kind of an overused word for the first time ever. But I don't think it's being misused. Saturn doesn't let us outsource our accountability. Make no mistake about that. It will not let us hand it over to someone else. You have to be accountable for yourself. And it asks us to stand behind what we choose. So that's why we have to choose so thoughtfully. Not that we can't make mistakes and alter it. We should always be in that stage. But we have to choose wise and thoughtfully. And that's where we correct course if it's necessary. So this isn't about becoming who you think you need to be or who you think you are. It's about losing the illusions that you've been carrying about who you are and taking responsibility for what you've done that within that identity. Okay, because the nodes don't predict the future. They show us. That's why the node. I should have said this. This is why the nodes are so important, and this is why I chose this. It was actually because you had asked for it, but also I chose the nodes because I know everybody's getting beat to heck over this Saturn-Neptune thing, which hasn't happened. I think they finally figured it out. Hasn't happened since I want to say, and this is a rough number, 45,000 BC. This conjunction hasn't happened. So what is that? Almost 7,000 years this conjunction hasn't happened. So that's how historic it is. And I also before I go on, I wanted to tell you, I don't know if y'all are familiar with an astrologer by the name of Heather Insworth. She is phenomenal. She's not just an astrologer. She's a psychologist. She's knows. Oh my gosh, she's just everything. She knows so much stuff. But she does a lot of work with cycles and ages and things like that, and it's fascinating. She's got a book coming out in March, and it is she kind of based it while she was watching 3i Atlas. And I wanted to give her a little plug here because she did a podcast with Anna Lapoa Walsh and on Astrology Hub. It's the last episode. If not, it's the one right before that. I don't know how often they do their podcasts, but all their podcasts are really good. If you don't listen to them, you should. But listen to her or look her up on her. She has a YouTube page, and I think she's pretty active on it. She also does some work with shamanism and stuff like that. So if you're into that and you're kind of into the history and stuff like that, I think that this would be really a great time for you to listen to some of her work. It blew my mind away. So I just wanted to give y'all that little tip. Okay, so that's why we're talking about the lunar nodes, because the nodes don't predict the future. They show us where we default, and where we keep nudging. We keep getting that nudge to grow, choose differently, and rebalance or balance maybe for the first time. It's no perfection is required when you're working with the nodes. Just being aware. That's it. That's all you really need. Just be aware. And that's all the nodes are really asking you to do. Be aware and try to be as balanced as possible. If you do not know where your nodes are, you need to find out. While I'm talking, pull up put your chart and figure out where your nodes are. Okay. So, this is probably one of the only slides you're going to see South Node correct. So, just so you know, this is how you identify North Node and South Node. Often, like if you're using some of the free platforms like Astrology.com or Cafe Astrology or Astro.com, a lot of times they'll only show North Node. They won't show the South Node. But the North Node and the South Node are directly opposite from one another. So they're always on the axis of whatever the North Node is. Example, if you have the North Node in Aries, you're going to have the South Node in Libra, which is directly across, right? So it's the exact opposition. If you have the South Node in Libra, you're going to have if you have the North Node in Libra, you're going to have the South Node in Aries. So, I hope that we're all clear on that. Okay. Can I just get somebody to unmute and tell me if you are able to hear me? Give me just say, yes, I can hear you. I'd hate to be. Okay.
Nice and clear.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, let's talk about what the lunar nodes actually are. Before we get mystical and everything, we need to get this straight. The lunar nodes are not planets. They don't emit any kind of energy. They don't do anything the way Mars or Venus does. They're astronomical points where the moon's path crosses the sun's path. Simple geometry. And because of that geometry, the nodes are why eclipses happen. So when we talk about the nodes, we're not really asking about vague spiritual concept. We're talking about actual intersections, places where two cycles meet. That matters because nodes don't describe personality. They describe momentum, where energy repeats itself, so the cycle of it, where habits form, where it feels familiar or automated, where growth feels awkward. Growing does feel awkward. It feels good after you've kind of gone through a growth spurt. You're like, oh wow, I went through that and I survived. But when you're actually going through it, it feels awkward and weird and unfamiliar and kind of inconvenient and uncomfortable. But it's necessary. The nodes aren't destiny. They don't tell you what will happen. They don't show you what you lean on under pressure and what keeps calling you forward. I often hear that the nodes are very karmic, but I haven't practiced the nodes like that. So you won't hear me really talking too much about karma on this. But I do hear a lot of people talk about, look at your North Node and your South Node to see what your past lives were, and I see where that might help. Because we do come in this world with the South Node energy, which we're going to talk about. So I see where it would help if that's where you fall, but I don't really mess around with that stuff too much. Not because I'm against it. It doesn't resonate with me. I've tried, but it just doesn't resonate with me. So I think of it more like muscle memory, not fate. The one, once you kind of see a pattern, you know you have a choice to stay in that pattern because it's a good thing for you, or get out of that pattern because it's a bad thing for you, or whatever your reasoning may be. So humans noticed these crossing points long before Western astrology or modern astrology. So before we talk about how we use the nodes, let's talk about where they came from. Let's see. Okay. So before nodes were psychological or symbolic, they were observed. We're talking about the ancients here. And really, they were kind of patterned when they saw the eclipses happen. But you can imagine how confusing that must be because, just think about how, it always blows my mind when I think about how these ancients had to pass this knowledge on to their children and their children and their children and their children. And it refined itself as it was refined. These observations were refined the longer, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years. They were refined down to this beautiful language that we've got. So it's amazing that it's that powerful to me. Okay, so people noticed that when the sun and the moon crossed paths at certain points, eclipses occurred, cycles reset, stories shifted directions. There weren't planets you could watch move across the sky, so that was a challenge. These were meeting points and intersections. Ancient astronomers were asking, what does this say about me? They weren't asking, what does this say about me? They were asking, what happens when we come back together here again when this happens? Okay? So it wasn't a personality thing at all. It was more like, what's going on in the real world? Are we going to have climate change? Or is the weather going to change? Are we going to be able to, is there going to be a new king? Those kinds of things. Okay. Ancient astronomers, I should say, and what they noticed was repetition, themes returning, thresholds appearing, moments where direction mattered more than speed. Even early on, the nodes weren't about punishment or reward. They were more about timing and momentum and consequence. Different cultures explain these points differently. One of the oldest, most vivid explanation comes with Vedic astrology of Rahu and Ketu. Okay. This used to scare me when I first started learning astrology. I remember not really knowing the difference between Western astrology and Vedic astrology and getting a book. I was very young, I was probably like 14, maybe the first time I had gotten a book on Vedic astrology, and it just tripped me out, man. It just tripped me out. Okay, this is where the nodes kind of picked up personality, and maybe a little drama. In Vedic astrology, the nodes were Rahu and Ketu, and they were explained through myth. Very briefly, there's an elixir of immortality, and Rahu takes a sip, and the gods catch him in mid-sip, and they cut him in half, basically, mid-swig. And I know this kind of feels intense, but Rahu becomes the head with the appetite and the desire and the obsession, and Ketu becomes the body without a head, kind of release, detachment, disillusion. So right from the very beginning, the nodes were understood as imbalanced. That's the thing that's super clear. Too much wanting on one end and too much rejection on the other. And we've all seen both. We've all experienced that. We've seen that in the people that we know, that we've encountered in our life. The situations that we've encountered in our life is when something is imbalanced. They want too much. They have too much. They don't appreciate enough. They don't care. All of that, all of that, way too much. Okay, and we think about something that you wanted. Yeah, if you think about something that you wanted so bad and thought it would just fix everything, that's Rahu. It could have been a job, it could have been a lover, it could have been, a car, whatever. It doesn't have to be anything material. It could have been just a new identity. And then think about the moment that you got it or you didn't, and you realized, oh, this isn't what I thought. That's Ketu. Okay? Neither is wrong, but neither is complete on its own. Rahu and Ketu weren't villains or heroes. They just describe what happens when one side runs the show and the other one sits back. So Western astrology kept this core idea but translated it into a psychological language. So let's talk about that and how we talk about the nodes in Western astrology. Okay. Let's see. Let me find my place again. Okay. Western astrology treats the nodes as a growth axis. Okay. So one end shows what's familiar and what you already know how to do and how you default when you're under pressure. Okay. The other end shows what you're learning to develop. And usually it's pretty awkward, especially when you're young. It's imperfect, but you do get better at it later in life. It does seem like it doesn't feel as uncomfortable because we had a lot more practice, trying to stay in balance and not swing the pendulum too far in one direction. This is important. So just remember that the lunar nodes are not good versus bad. It's just overuse versus underuse. That's it. So the south node shows where your skills come in easily, sometimes too easily. And the north node shows qualities that feel less natural, but ultimately create balance. Okay? I see the north node is where you can coast, and I see the south node where you can coast, and the north node is where you have to kind of stay awake and keep your hands on the wheel and your foot covering the brake. So growth isn't abandoning the south node. It's using it consciously instead of automatically. I hope this is making sense to you. Okay, now let's talk. Just know that these points don't really just sit quietly. They wake up at very specific times in your life, and they're activated, through aspects as well. All right. So, what activates the lunar nodes? They get loud when something touches them. Key factors are going to be eclipses in aspect to your nodes, major transits to the nodes, especially Saturn and Uranus, and the Sun, really. Well, really, yeah. Yeah, the slower moving planets in general, I think. But I've noticed in my life, Saturn and Uranus seem to really, and the Sun, really seem to be the ones, just in my life, that have really changed. But then again, I haven't experienced all of them up against it. So, the nodes crossing the angles, particularly midheaven and the ascendant. When the nodes cross the ascendant, that's obviously going to be all those ascendant things like your identity, changes in your identity, how you meet or present to the world, how others meet you and how they see you. And midheaven is going to be more of an effect on your purpose, your public life, the direction you're going, what you're known for. Or what am I trying to say here? Where you've built authority. Okay. One technical note I want to talk about is, and I know that pretty much everybody in this room is a pretty good astrologer, and I know that some of this is very basic, but just for those who may not know, a technical note that really matters symbolically is that the nodes naturally move backward through the zodiac. That's their normal motion. It's not retrograde. It fits their function, review, integration, and reorientation. Okay? So when nodes activate, they're not asking what's next. They're asking what hasn't been integrated yet. And that brings us to the two ends of the axis, starting with the one that we usually don't question at all. The south node. Oh, we talked about that, didn't we? Yeah, eclipses in the aspect. Yeah, okay, we talked about this one. I kind of moved forward. Important technical note. Okay, I skipped that. Okay, here's where this south node glyph is not correct, and I could not get it to change. Sorry. Should be flip the other side with open end on the top. So just know that. Okay. The south node is what's familiar. It's what comes naturally, and you have practiced so often it feels like it's automatic. It's there. Okay. So south node is where you're competent, where you're confident, where you're capable. All those, words like that. And often you're really admired for these qualities that are so easy to you. And that's why it can be kind of tricky, because if you're getting accolades and you're so comfortable there, why not stay there, right? That's a good place to default. Because the south node isn't a flaw, it's a strength that can actually be overused. It's where you go when you're tired, stressed, uncertain, you don't feel safe maybe, where you don't have to. It's a place where you don't have to stretch and be uncomfortable. The trap of south node isn't failure, it's stagnation. So you can't fail at your south node, but you can sure get stuck in it. It's staying loyal to what once worked. It may still work, but even though it's kind of staying loyal to things that work but may not be serving you as much as it could. So mistaking familiarity for safety. And you don't abandon the south node ever. A lot of I remember even I recently have been teaching you always want to stay in your north node. That's not necessarily true. I've been teaching that incorrectly, and I will own it. And it really took doing this series to really realize that I do believe you want to keep your eye on the north node energy all the time, but there is nothing wrong when things get hard, giving yourself some self-love and allowing yourself to go back to, this south node energy where you're comfortable just for a little bit. You got to promise to get out of it, but default back if you need to. The south node is really just where we default. The north node is where life keeps asking us to stretch and grow. If the south node is muscle memory and the north node is learning a new rhythm, you can do it, but it's not like you can do it on autopilot like you can on south node energy. And here's the key. The North Node doesn't replace the South Node, it balances it. Life often feels more meaningful when the North Node is engaged, even when it's less comfortable. You really feel like you're living life, like you're going for the gusto. Remember that? I think that, what was that? Go for the gusto. Was that a beer commercial? That would be so like me. Okay. What else do I need to say about South Node? Okay, let's just move on. I think I've said it all. Well, everything that I want to say anyway. Oh, I just passed North Node. Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Let's see. No, I just talked about North Node. Okay, sorry, you guys. Sorry. Okay, here we go. So I hope this isn't starting to feel heavy. If it is, it's kind of normal. But just let yourself lighten up about it. We're talking about patterns and growth and responsibility. And of course, that is always kind of on the heavy side. But I hope for those of you that read for other people that, this is I always give the North Node as, when I talk about the North Nodes a lot in a reading, because it's like a time period where they're going through something with it, I always give them North Node homework. And I've had some of the best feedback, not North Node, nodal homework. So where do you feel comfortable? Where can you grow more as a result of that? And so that may help you if you're giving readings, because it helps me. And I think it does help clients too. So if this is starting to feel heavy, I really do apologize. I don't want to be that way. It's going to get a little heavier as we go on. Just know this is just a short class. So the nodes matter because they explain why situations repeat themselves. The same things, the same themes, that shoulder tap that says, hey, we've done this before. Do we really need to do it again? And no, this is not the universe punishing you. If the universe wanted to punish you, it would have started in middle school, The nodes say the nodes don't say you're doing it wrong. They say, you've been here long enough to notice that something isn't working for you. Come on, snap. This isn't really about fixing yourself. You're not broken. It's about noticing when you're repeating something that is out of habit instead of with intention. The nodes don't demand perfection. They ask for awareness. This brings us to the real work, which is basically how you balance the North and South Node. Okay, working with the balance is that's really the core principle here. The lunar nodes are on an axis. They are not asking you to abandon one side of yourself and fully convert to the other. South Node holds experience, instinct, survival skills, and North Node holds growth edge and your stretch. The work happens in the middle, really. That's where, in the middle is where awareness is. The South Node is what you know how to do when you're tired, and the North Node is what you do when you're paying attention. Balance shows up in small moments. So pausing before reacting, which is the hardest thing in the world for me. Trying a different response, which I do that quite a bit, and I do find that it's effective, especially when I get in a critical a critical thing, where I'm just focusing in on what needs to be changed, what needs to be different. And I notice that if I will change, and I get into a thing of repeating myself, and I notice that if I change my response, I'll get usually a different response. If I change the way I respond, I'll get a different response from the other person. So that works for me. Letting the familiar support the unfamiliar. I work on it. I believe in it. It seems to help. These are just some things that I've noticed. It's not really a dramatic thing. And it's usually actually pretty subtle and quiet. That's why you got to pay attention. Sometimes it's really kind of almost boring, because it's a daily thing that we're constantly trying to stay in this balance. It's not like it's activated, and you really hear it then. That's when they get loud. But otherwise, it's pretty subtle. Now we're going to talk, and we're going to walk through all of these axes and listen to where you default, where you resist, and where life keeps nudging you. All right. And let me say also, I think this may be at the end of the presentation, but where your placement is, meaning the houses, and what the nodes are conjunct, what they're aspecting, this all matters an awful lot. And so as you're working with these nodes, if you have issues, it might pay, if you're not getting it, it might pay for you to book a session or something, or to dive deeper into Dane Rudhyar, or Alan Oken, maybe. Those are some good astrologers that really work on evolutionary. Dane Rudhyar was really the point person in bringing this into Western astrology. So let's give credit where credit's due. All right, here we go. Okay. We have the first axis. So this is self versus others. How do I assert myself without isolating people? And how do I relate to others without disappearing? This is going to be the Aries Libra axis. So Aries North Node and Libra South Node. The growth is clear assertion with Aries North Node. Direct desire, deciding without over consulting. Often they don't consult with anybody, or this energy doesn't. Learning to say, this is what I want, okay? And then defaulting into the Libra South Node is going to be able, the talent of a Libra South Node is being able to read the room. Keeping the peace. That's a gift, man. Avoiding conflict. Over considering others before yourself can be a problem. So an example would be Libra South Node, whatever you want is fine. Aries North Node would be, actually, I'd prefer this. And the balance is letting the harmony flow consciously and honestly. Okay, so if you're Libra North Node and Aries South Node, the growth is collaboration and listening, sharing decision making, learning to include others before acting. And the default is Aries South Node, and that would be acting fast, leading instinctively, doing it yourself. None of that sounds bad at all, right? It just sounds like, wow, that's very independent, very Aries, right? And then the challenge is the momentum, choosing momentum over partnership. Okay, that's where it kind of goes, that can be a problem. Okay, so an example of Aries South Node would be, I already handled it. And Libra North Node would be, let's decide together. Let's make this decision together. And the balance is lead, but don't do it alone. have backup. Have somebody with you on your side. Have a sidekick. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, we've got Taurus and Scorpio, self versus transformation. So this axis kind of asks, what am I holding on to and why am I holding on to it? Taurus North Node with Scorpio South Node. Let's cover that first. The growth in Taurus North Node is grounding, stability, building security slowly, learning to trust calm instead of crisis. That's the North Node growth of Taurus. The default, where you feel comfortable, where you have gifts, would be South Node Scorpio. Intensity comes very easy. Emotional vigilance, bracing for betrayal, keeping things to yourself, bracing for collapse, and living in psychological survival mode. Okay? So an example would be Scorpio South. What's about to go wrong? And staying in the North Node energy or balancing that would be nothing's wrong, I can rest. I'm comfortable here. I have my stuff around me. Okay? And the balance is let peace be something you practice. So you don't get that, that Scorpio South Node needs to feel peace as well, but you don't get it with a South Node. You have to practice it. Scorpio South Node. You have to really practice at it to build that emotional stability. Okay, Scorpio North Node and Taurus South Node growth is Scorpio North. Okay, so this is allowing transformation. Man, there's nobody that can do that like a Scorpio North Node. Allowing the transformation, facing the emotional truth of it all, the deep stuff, facing the ugly deep stuff, and somehow turning that into something beautiful, changing it, letting something end when it's finished, for God's sakes, letting it go, and then defaulting back to the Taurus South Node is clinging to stability, like a flicker, staying because it's familiar. Attachment disguised kind of as loyalty. So an example would be Taurus South saying, at least I know what this is, right? At least I'm familiar with it. At least I'm comfortable with what I know here, what is familiar to me. And I don't particularly like change. And Scorpio North Node is saying, it's time to change. Let's go. Time to get this going. So let stability support and not prevent. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is Gemini Sagittarius, mind versus meaning. So, or it could also be information versus meaning. So, the axis asks, am I gathering knowledge or living by living this knowledge, I guess, and trying to learn more. So, Gemini North Node, curiosity, listening, dialogue, staying open to nuance, and letting new information refine this information that you're gathering, this information that you research. Let it refine what you believe. Not just, letting it scatter and disperse, But if it's something that is important enough for you to integrate, then that's where it's going to go. And if you default to the Sagittarius, it's you know, Sagittarius South Node has the big picture. You know, they have very strong opinions, very philosophical, you know, with conviction. And they can actually be pretty rigid about what they, how can I say this? Let me think about this. It's kind of rigidity disguised as wisdom, if that makes sense. So an example of Sag South Node would be, I already know how this works. And an example for Gemini North growth would be, tell me more. The balance is, let belief evolve through conversation, not just one person being the know-it-all, and not just one person, or not, and I say persons, but you know, not just one node constantly asking all the questions and not integrating it. I say person, talking to them like they're people. Okay. Oh, I'm not there yet. Let's go back. Getting ahead of myself. Okay. Sagittarius North Node and Gemini South Node. So the growth in Sagittarius North is going to be synthesis, meaning, choosing a guiding principle, standing for something. I know 3 people with Sagittarius North nodes that are that have either been in seminary or in seminary, or, you know, to be a pastor or join the clergy in some way. So this is kind of a very typical energy for Sag, and for ninth house, and for, you know, the South and North nodes all the way around. But I think that this is very interesting. So choosing a guiding principle and standing for something. And then the default would be Gemini South Node. So this is endless learning, right? Which Sagittarius is kind of a forever student as well. And mental branching, right? Non-commitment, scattered to the 4 winds, staying in information instead of integrating it. So just by learning something and not really learning it, looking it up but not really applying it, is very much Gemini South Node. So an example would be, Gemini South would be saying, I'm still figuring it out, where Sagittarius North Node would be, this is what I believe for now. So let curiosity lead somewhere, for God's sakes. Don't just, you know, because I can go down that rabbit hole, and I'm a Gemini moon, man. I can go down a rabbit hole quicker than anybody. Oh, how did I do that? Okay, Cancer, Capricorn. Okay, so this is safety versus responsibility, or heart versus ambition. So this axis kind of asks, how do I care and still grow up? How do I care? How do I stay in my family situation? You know, Cancer's about the family, and they're empathetic. How do I care, but I know I've got to grow up and be responsible and do the hard things in life? Cancer North Node and Capricorn South Node. So growth in the Cancer North Node, emotional presence, vulnerability, receiving care. That receiving is very important. Receiving care, allowing yourself to need support. It's hard for a Cancer a lot of times to admit that they need support too. Okay, and then Capricorn South is control, responsibility, proving worth through productivity, and suppressing emotion to stay strong. Can you see where that's just like complete opposite and how you got to kind of come to the middle of that balance. So Capricorn South would say, I'll deal with the feelings later, and Cancer North Node would say, I need support right now. Let strength be soft every now and then. Capricorn North Node and Cancer South Node. So Capricorn North, boundaries, self-direction, long-term structure, taking authority over your life. And Cancer South Node is going to be, this is where you're going to default, caretaking, emotional loyalty, and over-identifying with your family needs or roles. You know, and I don't know who's, I can't really think about the family of the people that are in the room, but we all know those people that have such a strong family bond that that's what they identify most in their life, and that is not a bad thing at all. Nobody's saying, nobody's saying don't do that. That's a beautiful thing. Unless, of course, you had a really screwed up family and you can't get past it. Then that's a little bit more of a challenge. Or you identify more with those things that weren't so great in your family or that aren't so great in your family, and you can't really separate yourself out of it. So, just keep that in mind. And also Cancer South nodes are usually the ones that mature very early. It would be that brother or sister, or maybe even you, that took care of the whole family and was always the caretaker and started the job really early and always felt responsible for everyone, and just kind of had that you were a very mature kid, very serious kid. Okay. And Cancer might have been the one that was crying a lot. Okay. So, and also the healer. All right. So, Cancer North Node is about boundaries, self-direction, long-term structure, taking authority over your life. And Cancer South Node is caretaking, emotional loyalty, over-identifying with family roles. And so the balance is care without collapsing your own structure. A Cancer South might say, if I don't hold this together, everything is just going to fall apart. It's just going to fall apart. Very emotional, right? And then Cancer North Node would say, I'm responsible for my own direction. Not everybody else's, my own direction. I'm responsible for this direction. Okay, let's go on to the next one, Leo and Aquarius. All right. So this is Sun versus the stars, or self-expression versus collective vision. So this axis asks, how do I shine and still belong? How do I shine and still belong? Or if I'm not here, if I'm not being seen, do I really exist? Something like that. Okay. So North Node, Leo North Node is personal presence, creative courage, being seen, shining, taking up space as an individual, being the entertainer, right? The world needs entertainment. And Aquarius South Node is independent, individual eclectic kind of energy, and it's standing apart, have more of a group identity, and hiding in kind of hiding around their ideas and their thoughts and causes, if you will. So an example here would be Aquarius South saying, it's not about me. And Leo North saying, actually, it is a little. Mostly it's about me, but it's a little about you. Okay, balance is let individuality strengthen the collective. So let your individuality strengthen the whole community. That's giving that Aquarius philanthropic society thing a boost by the creativity and the generous heart of that Leo energy. Okay, Aquarius North Node, Leo South Node. So the growth node is contributing, and this is North Node Aquarius, contributing to something larger, sharing the spotlight, decentering ego. And South Node is, needing a little recognition. That's Leo, needing a little recognition, accolades, pats on the back, leading through visibility, feeling diminished if you're not seen. Okay, example here is Leo South. Do they see me? Aquarius North Node would be, how does this serve more than just me? So yes, it's true. Us Leos are a little me. I will say that. Balance is let your light feed the room. Let your light fill the room. Not just be the mirror. Let's go on to the last one, which is Pisces Virgo. And we are really going to finish up just about on time. Okay, so this is spirit versus service, or discernment versus surrender. The axis is asking what's mine to fix and what's not. So Virgo North Node and Pisces South Node. Virgo North. Structure, discernment, practical action, turning compassion into something that's real and tangible, and help, right? Service. All right. Then Pisces South is sensitive, so sensitive and compassionate. Lets all those boundaries kind of just disperse and dissolve, like we were talking about earlier. And is definitely escapism. Definitely escapism into how you're feeling. If you're feeling great, then that's one thing. If you're feeling, sad, then that's another thing. If you're feeling low energy, it's probably because you just are not working that balance. Okay, so a Pisces South. I just want to feel better. I just want to feel better. I just want to feel better about everything. Not necessarily physically, but it definitely can be. But it's also mentally, emotionally, all of it. And Virgo North is, here's one practical step to feeling better. Right? What's something, so you would go, what's something practical I can do to feel better? Get up and clean my closet. That kind of thing. So ground compassion in action. All right. Pisces North Node versus Virgo South Node. So Pisces North is going to be trust, surrender, allowing the mystery and the mysticism and the magic into your life, staying in the highest place you can be, really allowing your imagination to work for you, but recognizing the limits of recognizing your limits, like promising to come back. Okay, that would be Pisces North. Okay, Virgo South is going to be analytical, maybe over analytical, fixing everything, fixing everybody. Your worth is kind of tied to how useful you are. Virgo South, if is going to say, if I can just get this right and Pisces North Node is going to say some things don't need to be fixed. They're perfect the way they are. Everything will flow into place. Okay, so the balance is serve without confusing perfection with worth. All right. All right. So everything today is kind of the framework. It's not the full chart. The house placement tells you where this plays out. Transits tell you when it gets loud. The returns definitely have different times. I think we went over those dates. The first return is 1819, double that every 18 to 19 years. So you've got a return when you're 18 or 19, you got in your mid 30s, in your mid 50s, and then when you're 75, 74, 75. These are your nodal returns. And those are important. So, practice. I think practice is really the key. It's simple, Notice where you default. Practice stretching out to the other side, the other end of that axis, to get back to return. Sometimes you got to go way in the other direction just to get back to the middle and balance. When you're green, remember this, when you're green at something like North Node, when you're green, you're still growing, okay? When you know something, you're ripe, right? That's South Node. And when you're ripe, what's next? You rot. So when you're green, you're growing, you're ripe, you're rotten, okay? So just keep that in mind. Growth keeps you a little green, and North Node gives you integration. It's a rhythm, It's not a verdict. It's a rhythm you got to keep into. All right. With that said, thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your generosity, and thank you for being willing to look at your own patterns with honesty and following me on my astrological journey. I'd love having y'all here. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn this off and turn off the recording and ask if anybody has any questions. Give me just a second here. Well, do I know how to? Hold on. Well, heck, I'll just trim it out. I'm not going to turn off the recording. But if you don't want your face being seen, don't turn on your camera. Just unmute if anybody has any questions. Okay, thank you. Interesting and packed with information. Thank you. Oh, I see some stuff in the chat here. Okay, here we go. Thank you again. Thank you again. It was terrific. Thank you. Okay, you guys. Thank you. You guys are so cool. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or just ask me. Just open up your mic and unmute. Okay. You guys, let me know your honest thoughts about this, and if there's anything you just think you want to just email me about, Sally@activatedastrology.com. And also, I would love to hear any ideas about future stuff, whether y'all want to go into the houses or what the next step is. I'm kind of thinking about that the next one will be in March, and it'll probably be on the astrological new year. Okay? So, bye, blessings and stars.